pay-per-view UFC 301 in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, May 4th. Getting back to a little bit of our roots here. Pre-fight card predictions. Let's go. Now, before we get into it, this card is getting shitted on all over the social medias for being a pay-per-view with a lack of superstar names to it. However, there is some fun matchups here, and well, let's get into it from bottom to top. Main card. Okay, so starting us off in the main card, middleweight division, Paul Craig versus Caio Borralho. Now, both of these guys are coming off a couple wins. I think Craig has a couple win streak. Borralho has a few fight win streak. Who do I think is going to win? I believe Paul Craig. I'm not necessarily too much of a fan of Paul Craig. I feel like he's a little too stiff, and even his ground game is a little, when it comes down to takedowns, that is, or getting it to the ground, he seems very hard when he's very tight to you. So in a very tight clinch, or even when he goes to the ground, he's very tight. His legs are extremely strong. He has a very good guard. He throws his legs up and just, it seems people get trapped there. It's like a spider web. And like I mentioned, he does seem very strong. So once he gets a submission, it's pretty much over. Now Borralho's he's a little more explosive. He's a little more versatile. He's a little more fun to watch. He's explosive. However, I do tend to see him slow down a lot. And if this fight goes to the ground, which I do think it will go to the ground, because Borralho, when he starts swinging, he can get a little sloppy, explosive but sloppy. It's going to create scrambles. Chances are they're going to hit the floor. Chances are Paul Craig's very, very tight, strong jiu-jitsu is going to get him a submission victory, second or third round. Second fight in the main card, another middleweight clash. We got Michel Pereira and Ihor Potieria. Ihor Potieria is somebody that I actually like a lot. I love his style. Win or lose, he puts up a fight. He's very scrappy. And one thing that I've noticed about him is his striking. He can strike inside within the clinch at very close range, or he can keep his distance and just fire off beautiful straights from his southpaw stance. Michel Pereira, on the other hand, he's a little less of a boxer, unlike Ihor. Ihor's a more traditional boxer, kickboxer. But Michel Pereira, explosive, flying knees, cartwheels, backflips. I mean, you name it. This guy's just absolutely entertaining. Bottom line, this is fight of the night. This is going to be fight of the night. However, Michel Pereira tends to slow down a lot. And Ihor Potieria, I just see a very tenacious fighter in him. Although in his last fight, he did get stopped. But even in that loss, he looked extremely good until he got stopped. I got Potieria winning by decision. Not going to lie, I'm also hoping Ihor wins so he can do another Fortnite goofy dance that pissed off a lot of MMA fans when he TKO'd Shohan Rua. Third fight of the evening is another fun scrap, but we're going up to the light heavyweight division. We got Vitor Petrino versus Anthony Smith. Anthony Smith, Lionheart, he's had a lot of scrappy fights. He's proven himself over and over. But the last couple of times that I saw him fight, I mean, even his body looks deflated. It just seems he's a lot slower. His punches can't pack that pop they used to have. I mean, he really struggled with Khalil Roundtree, and he landed some leather on Khalil, but Khalil just kind of walked right through it. And it's not to say that Khalil can absorb punches. We've seen Khalil get stopped. So that's where I'm getting that from, where Anthony just wasn't able to hurt a guy who's been hurt several times in the past. I just don't see Anthony being able to take much punishment anymore as well. Repeating myself, hence the number of fights he's had, the number of wars he's had. Now Vitor Petrino, man, he has a style that reminds me of Costa Filipao, if people remember the 185 pounder, mostly known for getting liver kicked by Luke Rockhold. But Petrino's just a tank of a man. He comes in very powerful with his punches. Even his jabs seem to kind of move people. right? And it's wrestling kind of like a tank. I don't think I see anything too spectacular there, but he's just a tank of a man right now, physically in his prime. I see Petrino being able to control Anthony Smith, back him up all 3 rounds. I don't see a stoppage here, but I see Petrino winning a unanimous decision here against Anthony Lionheart. Now, our 4th fight and the co-main event. This one's a banger for sure. We got Jonathan Martinez versus a returning Jose Aldo, a legend. Let me start off by saying both men have vicious leg kicks. However, I think the determining factor in this fight is going to be just youth. Jonathan Martinez is just in his prime right now. He's young, he's powerful, he has incredible inside leg kicks where he's just destroying effortlessly his competition with. Jose Aldo, like I mentioned, coming out of retirement, returning after having a couple boxing matches here and there. I just don't see Jose Aldo being able to hurt Jonathan Martinez. Jonathan Martinez seems like a very sturdy guy that can withstand a lot, and like I said, just a walking little tank of a bantamweight. Just walks forward, stalks his opponents, vicious inside leg kicks. He's had a couple stoppages already with leg kicks. Jose Aldo is not prepared, and I'm sure he is, but if he's not prepared, I see Jonathan Martinez stopping Jose Aldo in the 3rd round. I see Jonathan Martinez finally taking a legend under his belt and taking his career from there. For the main event, we got a championship fight at bantamweight, 135 pounds. We have the challenger Steve Erceg versus the champion Alexandre Pantoja. Let's start off with Steve Erceg. Steve Erceg and his UFC debut, which he's only had 3 fights in the UFC so far. But in his UFC debut, he went up against ranked Dvorak. And there's a few things that I noticed right off the bat. One is the kid has a good size for bantamweight. Yeah, he's just tall enough to be taller than everybody else, almost everybody else in that division. But he's also pretty well built. His frame is very good for the bantamweight. He can use his distance, his long limbs, his powerful leg kicks. The guy's just a very good size. He's big for the bantamweight division. Another thing I noticed about Steve Erceg in 2 fights, again, the Dvorak fight and his most recent one against Matt Schnell, is that he gets tagged a lot. So he's not hard to hit. He's not a target that's hard to find. Although he's a very talented fighter and I'm sure he knows what he's doing, I've seen him get caught and I've seen him get stunned in both fights against Dvorak and Matt Schnell. Regardless, like I mentioned, he has size on his side. He's very well rounded and he does have knockout power. We've seen it when he head kicked Dvorak out of nowhere and dropped him, nearly finished him. And we also see that clean left hook on Matt Schnell that put Matt Schnell to sleep. As for the champion, Alexandre Pantoja, I've always liked him, although he's never really delivered crazy performances where he's been able to get his name out there with super highlights and whatnot. However, like I mentioned, very well-rounded, very powerful, very strong, very scrappy in scrambles. His striking he reminds me of Marlon Moraes. He's powerful for a round or 2, but after that, his striking goes out the window. I just see nothing but desperate, fly swatters to try to land a KO or significant punch. Also, his cardio has been a bit of a problem the last 2 fights. I see him slowing down tremendously to the point where he's running on fumes and his championship heart is the only thing that's carrying him. Now granted, his last 2 fights were against cardio machines, Brandon Moreno and Brandon Royval. In all of Steve Erceg's fights, I've come to also realize he's very patient. He's not a fighter that really goes and headhunts and pushes the pace. And this is where I think the difference is going to be in the fight. That Pantoja is going to be able to keep a comfortable pace because Erceg is not known to be a pusher, so to speak. He's going to be able to control the fighting. It's possible that he can control the striking very well since he won't have to really do too much output, because Erceg is not, like I mentioned, someone that pushes the pace. And when it gets to the ground, I just see him being able to comfortably control Erceg. I don't think we're gonna see a finish here, but I see Pantoja keeping his belt, still 135-pound champ, unanimous decision, probably even a 50-45.